Okay, good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for the little delay there. We were just jumping off another call. So today, I don't want to even waste a minute because we have some plans on the agenda to be able to engage in some good group discussion and some planning around the training and orientation needs for PAs, and hearing from you is really important. So for a brief CBME update, lots of communications went out in the last week or so that related to the 2020 launch and the impact of COVID, and specifically which programs will move forward in July. There are 6 programs that will move forward. The 6 that will defer to 2021 were on that list were adult cardiology, respirology, clinical allergy and immunology, and pediatric surgery. And the key points there has been really 2 things. One, the programs that will go forward with transition, the college is referring it to more of a permissive transition, where we recognize that there will be challenges with EPA observations, with reduced clinical elective surgeries, other challenges that present themselves to EPA completion. The rule, kind of general rule of thumb there, is capture everything and document it as much as you can using other assessment methods. There's been reliance on a greater reliance on ITERs. We've developed a virtual medicine rotation in ITERs, as well as an academic development rotation as well with ITERs, and ITERs junior and senior to be used during redeployment, which we've just started to have some experience with, and probably unfortunately may see again in the fall, hopefully not. So those things are in place. If there's any questions about anything in today's call, please actively use the chat function, because there's going to be a number of people that are going to be speaking, and they can kind of incorporate what your questions might be, and then we can certainly take them up at the discussion and planning. So the objective is really a brief update from Candace and Lauren, what they have learned on a recent call from the national group of program administrators. Chantal's going to chime in with some of the MedSIS enhancements that they've been shared with you on a detailed table prior. If you have questions about that, we have the table in the to project here, but you can ask Chantal any specific questions about that, and she'll go over the new competency committee dashboard as well. And then really focusing on PA orientation and training. Naomi Downer is going to share from her experience coming in 2019 into the role in CBD. And we really want to spend the time talking to really pull out what are those gaps between what you're getting and what you need now that we've moved more deeper and deeper into CBD, and your roles are evolving. So just before you carry on, Chantal, sorry, if we could have Candace and Lauren, are you on the call? They might not be on yet. There is another event. Oh, are you? Okay.
No, sorry, this is Allison. I just said I don't think that they're on.
Okay, yeah, there's another, we have a couple conflicts today. There's another event that was happening that we couldn't kind of avoid. And then there's some others that have program level activities that we were notified about. So that will go out in an update, so we can move on. So Chantal, you want to share your MedSIS activities? Lots of good stuff happening.
Yeah, so main things that are coming up is we have family medicine launching with CBME next week. And then we have, we're going to be working towards onboarding first emergency medicine and anesthesia medicine, anesthesiology, to have their global and daily evaluations working in MedSIS. And so this is just allowing for, it's like making use of the WBA, but instant email notifications, and you can tie faculty evaluations to it, which we previously didn't have. We're making enhancements to the learner summary report. One of the main things I think will be of interest to you guys is the competence committee dashboard. And Lisa, I don't know if you have a slide on that or I have it and I can share my screen.
Perfect. Please do.
Okay.
Let me just stop sharing while you do. Or do you want to just go through the other enhancements since I have the slide up here and then come back to the competency committee?
Okay, that works. So these are the bigger ones that are coming in the next wave of development. So we asked for these things to be developed by the end of August at the latest, but you can see there's a couple things in here that were more urgent and we've asked for a deadline of July 1st. One thing is that when you trigger an EPA on a mobile device or on the desktop, right now, there's only the short version of the EPA title. And so I don't know how familiar you are with the EPA names, but most of them have a quite lengthy name and they've been converted into this very short version by the Royal College. And currently we only display the short version. And what we're working on is when the resident or supervisor is going to trigger an EPA, there'll be like a little info button that they can click to see what the whole EPA title is so that they have a better sense of which EPA they want to trigger and they don't make a mistake in triggering the wrong thing or anything like that. So that's one. We're also working towards multi-source feedback. This one, we still have to do some work at our end to figure out kind of multi-source feedback requirements, what the Royal College is looking for in terms of multi-source feedback requirements, like what they want to know, what types of reporting need to go to the resident about their multi-source feedback, and then we'll submit that and get that underway for development. The next two things on here, advanced queries and multi-select options, these are specific to the EPA requirements. So when you look at your CBME dashboard for one of your residents, it has the stage and then it has the EPA and then it has the requirements that they need to complete in order to achieve that EPA. For some programs, they have more complex requirements where you need to have like multi-select certain things, you know, or the requirement can be very specific, like it has to be this specific procedure in this specific setting on this demographic of a patient. And right now we don't have functionality in the system that allows the system to do the legwork to track that and auto-calculate the resident's progress on that. And for programs who have those types of requirements, which is quite a few, they're tracking that stuff manually. So implementing these new functionalities will remove some of the legwork and manual work that programs are doing, and the system will be able to auto-calculate that process. The other assessments tab on the CBME module. So this is the tab that shows you all of the non-CBME forms. It brings in the ITERs, the WBA, the procedure log. And so we're making a few enhancements to this screen. One is we're updating or upgrading some of the filtering options. Something we've heard from programs is that when they're looking at these forms, they want to be able to filter to say, okay, our last competence committee meeting was, you know, September 15th. I want to see all of the assessments that the resident has had completed on them since September 16th until today. And that's a filter that we didn't have in there. You could only kind of say, show me all the evaluations for the rotations that took place in this period of time. And rotations taking place in a period of time versus looking at when forms were actually completed are two very different things, as you all know. So we're upgrading that. And then we also want to, you know, we recently, or not so recently, but we turned on expired evaluations, and that status is not coming into that other assessments tab. And so folks are saying we really need to see what forms have been expired. Like, is our resident trying to trigger forms and our faculty are lacking on completing them? Or do we need to follow up with the resident because they're not triggering enough forms? So they kind of just want to dig down an extra layer and really hone in on where the issue is happening and follow up appropriately. So we're implementing that as well. Probably the biggest thing that we're implementing that will have the largest impact on the most programs is the passive one-step acceptance. And so currently when residents trigger an EPA form to a supervisor, there's a two-step process. The resident has to trigger it, they send it to the supervisor gets an immediate email link, they click the link, they complete the form, they submit it. A lot of folks are saying, it's too confusing or too much time is going by. We really need that instantaneous, be able to put the feedback in, submit it, and move on with our day. And so we are implementing a one-step solution where the resident can trigger their form, hand over their mobile device to the supervisor, and it can be submitted right in that moment. There's no two-step with the email. And then what will happen is the supervisor will get an email follow-up for security purposes just to say, this attached form was completed under your name. If this wasn't you that actually completed it, then please contact such and such and such, whatever email we decide to have as the contact person there. Again, so we're hoping to have that ready for July 1 so that the incoming group will kind of be none the wiser to the old process. They'll be starting off with this new process that's more efficient. And then again, like I mentioned, the learner summary report, basically we're just building it up. We're just adding layers to it of more information, more flexibility in how you can pull it. Right now, everything's aggregated, and some folks are saying we'd rather see it collated. So we're looking at things like that, and those will be coming later on in the year. And I think the way things are going, the learner summary report will be the key piece of technology that we continuously layer on top of until we get to the point where every piece of data that exists in MedSIS on a resident will live in a one-stop shop report. Okay, so is there any questions about that stuff? And
I
this
just popped up to these because these are, I think, have a May end, right?
These ones have a May end. These ones are a little bit more minor. So right now on the EPA form, there's a score, I guess, if you want to call it that, that is called not observed. And right now, if you didn't observe something, you actually have to manually select that you did not observe it. And so we want to default these milestones to already say not observed. Like the assumption is that you did not observe them until you actually change the score to something else, like in progress or achieved. And then one of the other ones that it might not impact some of your programs, but there are a few programs where the order of the milestones actually has a purpose and like a purposeful sequence on it. And the way that we had them displayed, it was not showing up in the original sequence that was outlined by the Royal College. So some of the milestones are almost like a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And so we're implementing that they will show up in the order that is intended by the program when the file is given to us by Royal College. We had not originally put in a preferred sequence on the import process when we get the file from Royal College. So might not impact anybody here, but there are programs out there that do need to see that.
Great. And just to stop for just a moment and acknowledge Chantel's work, it's been absolutely tremendous, and she's taken great effort and time to really advance things. We're very, very lucky to have our own MedSIS system, and certainly Chantel behind it. I've worked with other CBME and another school and that are on, the consortium of Entrada, and our ability to customize and work at our own pace and really take feedback in from your programs and yourselves, the users, to further refine and make things more efficient is just tremendous. So thank you, Chantel. You've got a lot on your plate and you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you so much.
And I do agree, like having our own system has been a massive advantage. There was a there was a big cost attached to it, but I think it's already proved itself in terms of how far advanced we are in comparison to the other CBME modules that exist in the country. And just echoing what you said about, you know, we can actually listen to our programs and hear what you guys have to say. Like if something is not working or you see that there could be something improved, we want to know about it, you know, because then I'm sure if it's happening to you guys, it's happening to another program, and then we can work to like perfect the system and have it as functioning as efficiently as possible.
Yes, thank you. So to that, also the process of submitting, if you are having an issue, some of it might just be a training point where there's functionality added, and we will go forward with some MedSIS training on all of the different enhancements once they're in place. That's happening on the ground as Chantel works very closely with the programs that are moving into CBD. But those of you that are already in CBD, we want to capture that too. If you are having issues, please let Chantel know or myself. We do bring forms requests forward or other considerations to look at the functionality of MedSIS, and we put it through a fairly rigorous review and consideration and feedback cycling to be able to move things forward and make changes as we need. Okay. So back to kind of the thinking around orientation and traiing, and this is going to
sorry, I'm just gonna put in for, did you want me to show the dashboard?
Oh yes, yes.
And then once I show it, I'm gonna hang up from the line just because it's my day off today. I'm in the middle of painting,
Yes.
refurbishing furniture outside. So
Okay.
I'll let you guys get to it, but I can share a screenshot of the document we've been working with.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing, and then you can.
Okay.
I see a couple chats I can look at.
Okay, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Okay, so basically what this dashboard is, or the point of it, is to help simplify or better facilitate competence committee reviews for trainees. And so it originally stemmed from family medicine when we were working with them to get them onboarded to a CBME module in MedSIS. And they came up with, you know, they have their 6-month portfolio reviews and they have certain processes. And together we came up with a way as to how we could create a one-stop shop place where all of their documentation that had to deal with a particular review could be very easily accessed. And so from there, Lisa and Allison organized some meetings with Royal College folks, and there was good representation. There was PDs, PAs, competence committee chairs, or CBD leads from several different programs. It was actually it was a larger group than I had originally expected. The meetings went really well. We got some great feedback, not even just about this dashboard, but about the CBME module in general. And so we got lots of information on ways we can move forward with various enhancements. But the way this dashboard will operate is that the programs will have the flexibility to create a review. And so on this screen, a review is what you see in the burgundy line. This is called PGY1 Portfolio Review 1. You can create a review and name it whatever you like. If you want to say Review 1, if you want to say July 1st to September 30th, PGY1 year, whatever. Then the programs can configure steps that are part of the review. So it's either used as a checklist for all parts of the review that need to take place, or if there are certain folks responsible for certain things. And so in this example, the family medicine program created a 5-step review. And these steps are, the requirements for this review are that there's a learner summary report, that there's a resident reflection, that there's documentation about the outcomes of the review, that there is a documentation about learning goals, and then there's a final competence committee review letter. And then you can see responsible for this requirement, they've assigned a particular role, and then you can attach templates that you're expecting folks to fill out. So if your academic coach has to fill out a certain templated report, you can upload it here. And the idea is that you create this basic review with these steps. They're assigned to particular roles. You upload, all of your templates, and then you apply this review template to all of your residents. So now if every one of your residents has this PGY1 portfolio review 1, they know all the steps that are involved, they know who's responsible for the step, and they can log into their MedSIS as a coach or as a resident or as a competence committee member and say, oh, okay, so I'm responsible for the resident reflection. Here's the template. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to download it, fill it out, and put it back up here. And then the system will check off that it has been completed on this particular date. At the end of the review, when all of these steps are done, you can assign an overall status to the resident. We also talked about some enhancements of being able to include, what was the purpose of the meeting? Was it a decision to promote the resident, or was it a regular review, or was it, an extra meeting that was required for like remediation purposes? So we came up with some extra fields that would include key information about the review, and then the outcome of the review. So these are not added in this screenshot here, and I do have to update it before it gets sent off to our programmers, but there are a couple little additions that we made here. And so hopefully for program administrators who are doing most of the legwork for, making these templates and sending them out to your coaches and collecting information back and uploading it to supporting documentation, hopefully those parts can be eliminated. The focus will be on teaching folks how to access this dashboard and how to find the stuff that they're looking for. So all of that email back and forth and so on can be eliminated from the program administrator. So this is something that we're hoping to have in August, and I think the first program we'll onboard to it is family medicine, see how it goes for a couple weeks, and then work out any little kinks or anything that might not be working, and then we will open it up to the rest of the programs to start using for their reviews.
Do you foresee a bit of a pilot phase there too?
I think we'll probably pilot with family medicine. Like they'll probably do a few of the chief residents and use a few of the key leadership faculty people to kind of apply this to a resident, have a specific resident and coach go in and use it and see how it works. And then we will modify anything immediate that they report to us, and then we'll be able to push it out to the rest of the programs. I imagine it's not going to, I imagine that over time people will say, oh, we really need to see this and we really need to see that, or can we add these certain things? And we basically layer on top of what exists here.
Fine tune it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And we did have great representation. We had 17 people on the working group, including family medicine, competency committee chairs, PDs, PAs. So I think we had some really great input.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, shall we move on?
Sure.
I'm going to go back to.
Okay, I'm going to head out. See you guys.
Yeah,
if anyone has any offline questions, you can just email medsis@mcmaster.ca and I'll get those emails in case you have anything like program specific that you want to talk about or anything.
Thanks, Chantel.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, so we just time check here. We have about 30 minutes left, which is great because we're going to have the discussion time I'm hoping for. I'm looking for input. So just to kind of give a context of what we're trying to do here in the next 30 minutes was we're really taking a look at our orientation and training. And part of the reason is because we are planning for 2020, 2021. and the activities that we have for program administrators, taking a look what's been organized to date, what enhancements we might be able to offer. We have more PAs working in CBD programs and those venturing into them now in July. So we want to look at what those needs are and cover off any gaps. And so just to review that, I also took a look at the survey that was sent out to PAs last year too, and some of the feedback was that the program, the PGME program orientation and training was very supportive and useful and valuable. There may be a couple areas there that seem to be underscored. CBD certainly was one of them. You do have very functional large group meetings that continue and webinars. So that's one source of initial orientation and training as well as ongoing. The programs themselves, just to have an understanding here that the programs really are largely responsible for training their program administrators because they're so specific to what your role and responsibilities are. PG and PG CBME tries to capture the overarching ones that's relevant to everybody. But with that, we can always make improvements. So your feedback is what we're looking for. So CBME PA Lunch and Learns, we have those punctuated every 2 months with the PA committee meetings in between. So that's how the academic year is organized, and we'll look at that on the next slide. The CBME annual retreat typically happens in April. It's deferred to September or October this year, but that's another opportunity for a full day of learning that covers off key learning priorities and allows for some good networking. MedSIS training, we just seen, it's extensive. CBME website is a resource that has been available. There is a PA, PD, CBD, PD and learner section for resources. We are in the works of porting it onto a more updated platform. It'll look more similar to PG, so we're updating the versioning, but also kind of reorganizing how the resources are accessed and adding some more functionality. We're going to have that, and Allison's going to be very hands-on with that. CBME, the Microsoft team, that's in Microsoft Office. That is a team for everybody to be able to take a look at. So as resources or activities are underway across the committees, you can view in there. It's completely transparent. Anything related to CBME, I can do a session on an MS team for this group if it's of interest. I did just record a video capture taking a deeper dive into Microsoft Teams using the CBME module as an example with Teresa Chan. So those links will go out shortly. There is a channel in that team for PAs and the PA committee. So there's access to things that we talk about in there as well. I just mentioned the PA committee, they meet bi-monthly, and then we bring in a loop through members that attend the online national group and bring information back there for collaboration, sharing of resources, etc. The implementation committee, we have and the executive committee, we want to make sure we have PA representation on there. And if we don't, we want to take a look at that and make sure that's happening. There's an evaluation committee coming soon too, which may be another opportunity to participate in a committee. And now these new CBME webinars. So we've done one which was very well attended and was very relevant, I think, as the COVID issues and the launch issues. And we can continue these on a schedule that kind of makes sense for everybody. And certainly recording them is helpful in putting it out to those that can attend. But I feel taking opportunities through web technologies is really helping to get connected faces to names, and being able to chat and interact is really, really helpful. So the next thing, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to introduce Naomi Downer, who has come on board into CBD in 2019, and she's got a presentation for us that's going to kind of start off some further discussion about things to think about, recommendations for those that are about to launch in 2020, and certainly some thinking points about what we can maybe start to focus on as priorities going forward and where we might want to enhance things. So thanks, Naomi, for agreeing to do this. I'm going to stop sharing and then you can share your screen.
Yep, most welcome. Thank you. All right, perfect. So my name is Naomi Downer. I think I've met most of you. I'm the current program coordinator for Surgical Foundations, working for Dr. Amin. I started in my position in August 2019. Admittedly, I was super overwhelmed with CBD components and it overall, and I think it's important to say that because it's been just so much learning, constantly learning and asking questions. And I just want to shout out to my fellow program coordinators for all of their help over the last few months. Just invaluable, the amount of patience, kindness, and guidance that everyone has shown me. So I really appreciate that. I also think it's important to, you know, just say when you have questions or when you're confused, because this is a really big change in education. And as someone who is new to medical education in general, yeah, it was overwhelming. It was not easy. But yeah, I just want to say thanks to everyone. All right, so as a reminder, CBD is a change for everyone from the program directors, residents, program coordinators, faculty, staff, our nurses who are also doing some feedback on multi-source. It's a big change for everyone. One of the things that I'm most proud of since joining in August is working on the efficiency of our competency committees. So one thing that I'm really proud of that is honestly still a work in progress is making our reviews more electronically based. So instead of having paper forms going back and forth with communication, we have now been using electronic reviewer reports, which I found has been incredibly helpful, both in time and honestly paper-wise. Last and not least, McMaster and institutions across Canada have been holding faculty workshops, just so everyone can sort of get on the same page, which is also another challenge, just the level of understanding from everyone's point of view of what is CBD and what is actually being looked at and how do you gauge the success. So Surgical Foundations, we are also going to be working on holding workshops as well going forward. All right, so I have 3 tips for entering into CBD. So if you can, my first tip is attend in advance. So reach out to program coordinators that are currently in a CBD format and try and attend their competency committee meetings or their RPC meetings. I know that a few of you have come into our meetings and found it quite helpful. I'm someone, I mean, we all have different learning styles, but I'm someone who honestly I need to see how something goes. I need to understand the flow and I need to be present to understand how things work. So I think it's really, really helpful if you have the opportunity to sit in on a meeting and just see how that meeting actually goes, the flow of communication and whatnot. It will be really, really helpful. It will also allow you to think of additional questions or things you might not have considered previously, and that's only going to benefit everyone in the long run. The other thing I'll say is that the reviewing process, the committee will get better and more efficient as time goes on. We've had meetings that have been 5 hours. Oh my goodness, no one wants that. It's not an effective use of our time. But over time, we've been able to figure out, hey, what needs to be said and what do we need to look at? The second thing I have is familiarize yourself with milestones and EPAs. I spent hours going through so many documents from the Royal College, looking online and trying to really understand what was being looked at and what was being assessed in each EPA and each milestone. I think it's really helpful to organize things in a way that you understand. And again, just asking questions to your program director and looking at all of these resources is helpful. But I found something that really allowed me to understand what was being looked at was to organize things in a way that I understood. And looking on MedSIS is also a great tool. If your dashboard is already set up, I would definitely suggest taking a look through it to see what the residents are going to view. If there's something in advance that you think might be missing, email Chantal. She's absolutely amazing, and she can give you, some suggestions or even just additional knowledge. And that way you can have a better understanding of what the residents will see themselves and what can be added. Lastly, it's not necessarily, I guess it's a tip, but I just wanted to say one of the challenges in surgical foundations, and this is a continuing challenge, is ensuring that the contextual information and the actual assessments of BPAs make sense. So there's things, Chantal actually referenced some of these, if you need multi-source, if there's so many environmental factors that have to be checked off. One thing that we have noticed, because it's just such a big shift for faculty, staff, and residents, is to actually make sure that the contextual information is found in the assessments on those RC triggered forms. So one thing we constantly are reminding our residents of is triggering forms with the faculty present and taking those 2 to 3 minutes to just remind them of what is being evaluated. This will save so much time for everyone in the future, especially people on the competency committee and you as a program coordinator, when this information is inputted from the start instead of having to go back. So that's something I just wanted to put in here because I think that will be really helpful. And if you can nip this in the butt now, it will genuinely save you so much time. So I thought I'd put it on there. I put some additional resources on there. We are working on updating the Surgical Foundation's website. Again, I'm really proud of the electronic reviewer report, especially during COVID, doing things online and considering different options. I think it's only going to increase after this experience. But yeah, those are some of my tips. I really would love it if people reach out to me with ideas or suggestions or if they have questions. Again, I admit I was super overwhelmed when I came in, but through people helping me and over time, I feel more confident. So anything I can do to just pass that along and help other people, I will gladly do that. So yeah, that's it.
Thanks so much, Naomi.
Yeah, thank you.
So picking back up with your point about the overwhelm, and I have heard this, and where am I here? Sorry.
Oh, I can share my screen if you want, or I just wasn't sure if you wanted it.
I'm just looking for my PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, so that point is so important because that's where I want to kind of start some of the deconstruction about, I'm looking at the post-grad level of orientation and training and specifically what they're doing, but I'm backing it up to actually trying to understand and looking at the roles and responsibilities of a program administrator, and then with respect to CBME as well. So I do wear an education lead hat in post-grad, so that's why I'm looking at that curriculum and then looking at the CBME curriculum and certainly what the needs are, and I'm trying to construct it that way with to improve my own understanding and making sure that those gaps are there. But I think part of it is chunking and being able to sequence learning in a way that makes sense and delivering that training in a way that helps it stick and translate to your day-to-day job duties and being able to handle situations that happen and be informed enough to be able to respond.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I think some of the things that you kind of touched on was mentorship. You talked about how the others were really, really helpful to you, and those things happen over time. And that's something we want to encourage. And I've talked about that at the PA committee of being able to expand the members of the PA committee to have those that are about to transition with those that have already transitioned, and then maybe ones that are 1 year out so that we can kind of strengthen that bit and build a network. So we are working on it in that sense. But just back to the day one of readiness of stepping into that role and what is it that's required. So there's so many responsibilities attached to your role, and then there's CBD on top. So evaluating the curriculum as it is one thing. And so this lends me to look at the lunch and learns and how we might structure things slightly differently for 2020-21. And please, anybody chime in. There's, I think, just a number of us on the call. So if you want to just do it verbally, please do, or use chat. I've just pulled up what the lunch and learns were this past year, and recognizing that these things were all coming in fast and furious as we came to adopt CBD. Now we're deeper into it. We understand issues differently. We have more people in it that have perspectives and can give input. So we can change things around. So when we look at CBD 101, which was typically offered in October, yes, the face-to-face sessions were a great way to come together, but I think it was a capacity issue. I think it was challenging to get, knowing the number of you, we didn't see those kinds of numbers. So being able to do it web-based as well as together face-to-face and think about blended strategies to take some of the learning deeper. That's something I want you to kind of think about as I speak, and then I want to hear from everybody else. So just quickly to go through the lunch and learns is one of our main mechanisms for training on CBD. So what is CBME? I'm getting a strong sense the model is, without an education hat and understanding really anything about a completely new way of training and assessing residents, the model can be complex. EPAs and milestones, they have to make sense. And so framing it from, what's different, what's changing, and then looking at the curriculum and the role of coach and how things roll out. And certainly I see assessment as a main theme or submodule that fits under CBD. And maybe that breaks out into a number of 1-hour webinars or some face-to-face where we come together and really discuss some of the challenges that are presented in any one of those modules. Then in December, and maybe it's something we do monthly. These are the kinds of things. If you hear my questions, maybe you have a chat answer and say yes, or put your hand up using the response options there. In December, we did a competency committee that was preparing for a competency committee. Vanessa and Wendy led that one, and they shared their tools and the process, all the things to think about. Hearing Chantel mention all of the different enhancements, and then certainly the competency committee dashboard, that all fed into this in terms of how do we streamline it, make it more efficient, how do we ensure good quality data going into MedSIS so that that quality data is available for easy extraction when there's deliberation and decision making around progression and review of trainees. So I think these sessions we might want to revamp. We'll need to, because MedSIS is going to be changed. But I think I hope to have some people come together, if this is an interest, to not only present on it, but come together and really work on developing that with Chantel and groups from the PA group, and certainly from the committee, to make some really good, useful training bits. That's a big piece, the competency committee. We're also going to be moving forward with evaluating it. So some things are dovetailing. In February, tips and tricks, we took a look at that. Sarah and Julie presented and shared lots of from their experience. And I think that's a good thing to kind of cover across a number of topics. I kind of recognize one face-to-face 1 hour can't capture everything, and we want to have that discussion too. So our delivery methods, maybe we do a webinar and a follow-up on those things that really, maybe we do a 1 day where we break out face-to-face around a number of topics after we've done some webinars. We can think about that option too. Academic coaches, the role of an academic coach, we had to cancel that due to COVID, but we did open up the academic coaching workshop that's on May 27th. Coming up, that's a FacDev opportunity. It has breakout rooms and some already, I think it's already closed and registered. We had over 60, and I believe some PAs were participating in that or attending. June, enhanced learning and remediation. Again, COVID interrupted, but these are things that we can build webinars on and move forward. I'm curious about your thoughts. If you can enter in the chat what you think about doing some things over the summer for a 1 hour webinar here and there, or shall we do things rest? What do we need specifically for the groups that are launching? And how do we approach that permissive transmission with those groups that we talked about? Those that are deferring to 2021, we don't want to lose momentum. We don't want to redo effort. So how can we support you going forward to establish yourselves and have everything absolutely ready, specifically with fact dev and resident readiness. So that's that. And I just want to open it up for questions or comments or ideas. Oops. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
I think we have a
Suggestions
couple.
in the chat, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just looking for that. Let's just close this down. Get back into Zoom. Okay, Alice, instead of me looking, why don't Allison, if you want to read through the chats and then we can just speak.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were looking at it. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
So Naomi suggested that 1 hour sessions on specific themes could be helpful. So something like topics like communication with residents or using the dashboard, and communication with faculty and staff about CBD.
Okay.
So 1 hour sessions in that sense, I think could definitely be helpful. Yeah, good idea.
Okay, so that just prompted me around using the dashboard. Chantel is moving forward with her planned training. Everything's right on track. There's an update in terms of all of the programs had been loaded into all the EPAs and the pathway. Everything had been loaded into MedSIS already. And she's moving forward with training. So she's going to create a video capture of the dashboard, taking it more deeply into the dashboard, and we'll send that link out. And then people can respond to her directly with questions. And then in June, for those programs that we're launching, she's holding a session that will take you through the dashboard, but you can also log into your own instance and then have some experience with it with her during that hour training. So those dates for June went out already, and they went out to the CBD leads, PDs, PAs, competency committee chairs, and academic coaches. And so you can remind your troops back in your programs to have signed up for those. Communication with residents and that, some of those things are kind of overarching that would fit into the PGME orientation curriculum, so we can make sure it's captured in there. And then anything that's more tailored to a conversation about CBD and helping them get comfortable with triggering the observations. That's one thing that they kind of need. I agree with Naomi in her presentation. It was one thing that did come up at implementation, is they're a little timid, and they don't want to kind of interrupt faculty or bother them, even though they're encouraged to take on a very self-moderated, self-directed role in their learning. So that's a really important point. The other two is around a change we made. You would see it in MedSIS now to the O-score anchors. The entrustment anchors have been slightly modified in their verbiage, not in intent. We looked at the 4-5 issue, recognizing we just weren't getting 5s because, you know, I didn't have to be there, just created havoc in terms of what the intent was. And it's really more of a metaphorical one, that they are safe and performing the procedure clinical task appropriately, independently, and safely. And that I literally, it's not literally, but metaphorically didn't need to actually be there. Of course you have to be in order to make that observation. And so we did some of that work, and we had just ended up coming up with new anchors. They've already been updated into MedSIS, and we're going to take a look at how that might help improve things. But that's another piece around resident comfort, is they might only be comfortable with triggering when they think they're a 4 or 5. And really the progression to competency is across that entrustment scale, that we don't really expect you to be at a 4 or 5. You're here to learn. So a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 is fine as long as you're showing that progression. And when the we're improving the EPA summary graph, and the milestone graph is there as well. It populates for you in the trainee profile. When they look at that, or they look at that with their coach, and they look at the trend line, as long as it's moving forward, and if there's ups and downs, that just flags where there may be enhancement, and maybe there's a change made to the learning plan as part of their journey and their natural learning journey to competency. So all of those things are some of the dialogue that's really important. Really good points. Is there other comments in chat, Allison?
Yeah, we have a lot of yeses to some training with the dashboard, the Competence Committee dashboard. So I'll resend you guys the registration, and we could probably maybe have a session again in the later in the year once people have a bit more experience with it and kind of display that differently. So ways that programs are working through evaluating CBME cohorts, alongside traditional cohorts. That's a good idea.
Okay.
And yes, this will be recorded if anybody came on late.
Great.
Sorry about that, guys. A more general session on improving faculty engagement and how to get all faculty on board with the changes.
Okay. Yes, and so I can just speak to the work of the Faculty Development Committee. I'm having a problem with my Zoom link, Allison. I'm just going to leave it. If everybody can hear me, we're good. The Faculty Development Committee is chaired by Irene Basilius, and we've done a tremendous amount of work in identifying still those learning priorities and aligning them with what resources we have, and looking to enrich those things. So that is, there'll be a faculty development plan coming out, and some of that for details in terms of what will be offered for next year will be coming over the next month or two. And that's a very active committee. The Learner Development Committee has recently been restructured. Just to give you an update, it's now chaired by David Callan. He's established 3 sub-working groups to look at each transition point. So residents coming in from medicine into postgrad and have specific needs for PGY1s entering CBD, and then those that have already transitioned over, and those that are exiting and moving on. So he has lots of activities happening in a brand new, well-established committee. And the implementation committee looks at all of these issues as well, represented by the various roles. And we look at barriers and enablers and where do we need to prioritize input. If you're interested in these committees or any other questions about how we're organized in CBME, just drop me a line. And if there's opportunities to get engaged in the work of those committees, I absolutely would welcome you. And we are moving towards establishing some smaller working groups as we try to get some neat eval stuff together and looking at how things are working and how can we make some quality improvements, as well as what pieces might become scholarly works, and putting that forward. And we hope to get a couple posters into ICRE. An update there is it'll likely all move online, like Amy has already announced. And so just looking broadly for opportunities for program administrators to get involved in not only your own work, but in terms of the broader CBME work as well. Any other things? I see we've got just a couple minutes left. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so we'll take the questions that are in the chat, and that'll inform any updates, and we'll put any answers out to the group. The session has been recorded, and so we'll send that link out too. That's Allison working furiously behind the scenes, keeping everything going and recorded, and that way we can really reach everybody and not and pick up from where we left off. It's good for us too to look at that recording and help it inform our work. So that's all good. Okay, so if there's nothing else, we can wrap for a day, and we can, I'll put out notice, or Ellison will, of whether we want to do this again just before launch or shortly after launch, and see where things are at. And then we'll continue to pull in your feedback around planning those lunch and learns, and we'll do it in a more structured way with some of this feedback. And we'll look to review and revise those for 2021. So thanks for your input. And thanks again, Naomi, for participating.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.